let's plow on with the next section. In the last section, we created a cross-platform app that allowed us to have a single to-do list item. In this section, we're going to extend that concept. So instead of just do it times 1, we're going to have just do it times 10. And that means we need to create a list view or a table view on our platforms. Along with that, I'm also going to dive a bit deeper into the XAML markup language, and we're also going to learn how to bind things together and allow them to change whenever a variable changes in our code. So let's get started. Create a new solution in Xamarin Studio, and you should be used to this by now. We want a Xamarin.Forms app. Click Next. We're going to give this a distinctive name, so I'm going to say just do it x10, or I'm going to actually put that without a number, x10, and we're going to use a portable class library. Hit Next, project name, solution name, all good, and let's hit Create. Once that's all created, in the next lecture, we're actually going to look at designing our app and actually marketing it, because yes, it really does start that early. Now that we have a basic project set up, let's look at the design of it. So, as you're now familiar with, if we open our shared PCL and we go to its root directory, right-click, and let's click Add. We want a new file, and then we want a forms file and a content page.xaml. And let's call this main page. And hit New. And as usual, that creates a XAML markup file and a code behind file. So in the XAML markup file, we have a few things that we have to do. And I'm just going to put these on the next line so you can see them easier in the video. And the first thing we have to do on our main page is we have to give it a title, of course. So title is equal to just do it x10. Then we come down to our content. And as we need 10 items in this to-do app, we need to create a list view, or a table view as it's called in iOS. So let's go ahead and do that. Type open bracket list view, and then we need a name for it, and we will just call this list view quite simply. And then what we need is an item selected event, and this is going to fire off an event that's contained in the code behind this whenever an item on the list view is actually clicked. So we will call this on item selected. And then this is optional, but we can give it a row height, and because we only have 10 lines, we don't want to squeeze them in so it only fills half the screen, so we can be generous with our row height, and let's say 120 for that. And then close our bracket and close the tag, and then create some space inside there. So that's the basic list view loaded. Now we need a template for it. So we type list view dot item templates, or template, sorry. Close your brackets and close off the tags. And I'm just going to indent this so it's easier to read. Then we need a data template to go with this list. So that's the top there. Close off the tags as usual. And then each list has a bunch of cells or rows that we see whenever we're scrolling. So this is called, in Xamarin Forms, a view cell. Like that. Let me just indent those as well. And save it. Now inside the view cell, we need whatever elements we need. So we need some text boxes, we need maybe a background image, and this is where we put it all. And there are a few ways of doing the layouts inside these view cells. the first of which is an absolute layout and the second is a relative layout. We're going to use both here so you can learn them. So type open brackets absolute layout, and then we have to give this a property of is clipped to bounds equal to true. And that means if we have an image that's too big for the cell, if it goes outside of the cell, if we don't have this set to true, then it will show below the cell. And we don't want that to happen. We want it to clip to the size of the cell or the row. Then we need to have some bounds for this absolute layout. And we do that by saying absolute layout, I can't spell today, dot layout bounds is equal to 1, 1, 1, 1. And that just means that it fills up its entire container. So the first two values are the position. If I gave a position of 0.5, it would go to halfway across the screen. But we want this to maximize everything. Then we need some layout flags, and don't worry about these for now. Dot flags, dot layout flags is equal to all. I'll go into that a bit later on. And then of course we want to close our absolute layout tag and drop that down a few levels. Okay, now we have a layout ready to go. Let's put in some actual elements. And the first one we need is a nice background image. So let's have image, and in Xamarin Forms it's really simple to put this in. We say source is equal to, and then I just going to call this bg.jpg. And what Xamarin Forms does is it goes over to the Droid project and looks inside resources and drawable, and it goes over to the iOS project and looks inside resources. So we want to drop this image into those two folders, and we'll do that in a minute when I finish typing here. So for this image we need an aspect ratio, and we want this to fill our container. And then we want to have an opacity, and this just means how see-through is it. And what we're going to do here is we're going to introduce you to the binding concept. So if you open curly braces and type binding with a capital B, and then I'm going to say alpha close curly braces. This binding is a keyword that Xamarin Forms looks at and says, okay, I'm going to take the next word, which is alpha, as the property that I'm going to assign to this opacity. So this is going to start introducing us to variables that are in the code behind the XAML. And once you've done that, let's / and close it off. Let's add that image to our folders. So come over to your Android project.drawable, right click add files. Let me see if I can remember where I've put this. I think it's in my iCloud, Xamarin Forms course. There we go, bg.jpg, and copy it in. And then do the same with resources. Add files, bg.jpg. Of course, I will include this in the resources section of this lecture. So over on the right hand side, if you're watching on Udemy, click on the resources tab. You can also have these images stored in your PCL, but it's a little more complicated, and I'd advise just to store them in the Droid and iOS projects. Okay, let's move on with the rest of our layout. So the next thing we have to create is some text, because a to-do list is rubbish without text. And to do that, we're going to have a stack layout, which is a relative layout. And we're going to put some padding into it, equals, and this goes from the left-hand side, top, right, bottom. So we can say 10, 10, 0, 0. And then we need some horizontal options for this. And that's just where we're going to place it. And we want to place it at the beginning, which is start and expand. And we need an orientation so it knows how to stack things. And this is just going to be vertical. Close off the brackets and then drop that tag down. Now we're ready to put our basic elements in, and that is a label with some text equals to, and then again in here we are going to bind something. So to do that we say binding title. It's going to go look for the title variable. And we want to align this in the Y. So we're just going to put this in the center. So it takes whatever text is there and puts it in the center of the box. And then we need, oh, I've forgotten equals. There we go. And then we need some horizontal options. And we want to put this at the start of the container. Let's give it some nice things. Let's have a font size equal to medium. And we need a text color equal to white, because the background is actually a dark green, so that fits nicely. And close it off. We need one last label, which is the actual content of our to-do item. So we can say label text is equal to another binding content. And let's have some Y alignments on this, which is center as well. Let's have a font size, and because this is going to be more text than the above one, we're going to make this smaller. And of course we want our color again to be white so it's readable. And then close that off. Right, that completes the layout of our app. Let's assign it to the main app page. So let's open justdoitx10.cs, and inside here remove all of this boilerplate code. So the main page and this. And then we need a new main page, and before we would have just said I would like you to say new main page, but this time we're going to have some navigation in this app, and that means we first have to set this page as a navigation page. So that's very important, otherwise your navigations won't work in the future. Then open our brackets and it asks us for a page root. So this is going to be a new main page, and then put those in. And do we need one more bracket? Yes, we do. And then we can give it some properties. So inside curly braces we can write some things in here. The first one is we want to have the text color of the top bar. So we say bar text color is equal to, or rather is equal to, color dot white. And then we need the bar background color, and we're going to set this to roughly the same color green as we have in our background images. And to do that we say color dot from hex, and this allows us to put in a hex string, which if you've done any web programming you'll know what this is. And we want a value of 63 AD 72 for this. Okay, now let's fire it up and see what that looks like on our simulator. And if it looks good, we can carry on. And it doesn't. It says there's no method of onItem selected. So it's complaining that we haven't actually installed that method. And if you recall, it was way up here on item selected. So let's just do that now, seeing as we're here. Let's go to main page.xaml, and then inside here we're going to put our method in. And we will start with a public, and we'll need to make this async, but we'll look at that later. Void on item selected, and then we need an object to go with that as sender, and then we need selected item changed event args. That's a mouthful, E, and that's the blueprint for this. So now when I hit play, it shouldn't complain that we don't have this method. And there we have it. And if you'll notice, we don't actually have any images in here, even though we've specified it. And that's because we haven't assigned any cells yet or any data to it, so that's fine. But you'll notice at the top bar we have this green background and the white text, which is perfect. It's just what we need.